Ready to step off the map from the most hidden alleyways to the stories nobody told you? Uncharted Alleyways begins now. Your definitive guide and travel podcast, culture, adventure, and the world as you've never heard it. Tune in, disconnect from the obvious, and come explore with us. Uncharted Alleyways, your next trip starts here.
What happens when you visit a city that actively refuses to impress you?
Well, that's a great question.
Because you know the feeling. You step off a train in Rome or Paris, and bam, there is the Colosseum or the Eiffel Tower.
Right, the city essentially hands you its identity on a silver platter.
Exactly. But what do you do when a destination demands that you, well, slow down, get a little messy, and uncover its magic layer by layer?
You really have to change your entire mindset.
Yeah, you do. So today, we are tearing up the pristine tourist itinerary for this deep dive. We want to figure out why a city that hides its best qualities in side streets, dive pubs, and messy takeout wrappers.
The really greasy ones.
Yes. Why a place like that might actually be the one you remember the longest. Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are analyzing an exploration of Glasgow, Scotland, and breaking down the sociology of how we interact with urban spaces.
It is a brilliant contrast to study, because when you look at the geography of Scotland, Glasgow is almost always positioned directly against its neighbor, Edinburgh.
Wait.
And that contrast is entirely about preservation versus adaptation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if Edinburgh is this pristine historical museum that you stand back and admire from behind a velvet rope,
Like grand castles and history perfectly preserved under glass.
exactly, then Glasgow is the living, breathing city you actually get to know. It is not trying to be a museum at all.
No, it's really not.
It is a place where history is constantly being written over.
And that is a crucial distinction. What we are examining today isn't just a travel itinerary. It is essentially a masterclass in post-industrial economic adaptation.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Glasgow is defined by centuries of maritime trade, heavy industry, and shipbuilding along the River Clyde.
The famous shipyards.
Right. And it's also deeply defined by mass immigration. So you are looking at a place that has had to survive economic collapse and reinvent itself, rather than just, polish historical monuments.
Which makes sense. And to really understand how a city continually reinvents itself, you first have to look at its physical bones. The architecture, yeah. If you start right in the center of the city at George Square, you immediately feel that tension.
Oh, absolutely.
You have these massive historic buildings, these grand civic monuments, but the space itself isn't quiet or reverent. It is aggressively bustling.
People are rushing to work. Taxis are flying by.
History and daily life are just violently colliding.
Because it is a highly functional space, not a ceremonial one.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the visual character of the city itself.
Right, the stones.
Yeah, you have the warm brown and gray tones of the local sandstone. But everywhere you look, you see this stark structural juxtaposition.
Like the old and the new meshed together.
Exactly. You have highly ornate Victorian architecture funded by the incredible wealth of the 19th century shipping boom, sitting shoulder to shoulder with strictly utilitarian modern buildings.
So it's basically a visual timeline.
It is a visual timeline of a city that builds exactly what it needs for the era it is currently surviving in.
We absolutely have to talk about Charles Rennie Mackintosh here, because his architectural style is basically written into Glasgow's DNA.
Oh, you can't talk about Glasgow without him.
He is famous for marrying highly practical, functional design with incredible artistic details. But how exactly did he pull that off? I mean, what makes a building look like Glasgow?
Well, what Mackintosh did was synthesize the city's two competing identities. He took the heavy, unforgiving industrial materials that Glasgow was famous for producing.
Like iron and steel.
Iron, steel, heavy timber, yeah.
Yeah.
And he manipulated them into delicate, organic, nature-inspired shapes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he would use heavy ironwork to forge flowing, elegant rose motifs.
Oh, wow.
It is the perfect physical embodiment of a city transitioning from a grueling industrial powerhouse to a sophisticated cultural capital.
And his masterpiece is the Glasgow School of Art, right? Though it has a really complex recent history.
It really does. It has suffered devastating fires in recent years, followed by massive ongoing rebuilding efforts.
Which actually gave me a thought about how we perceive cities. Glasgow sounds less like a polished marble statue that you put on a pedestal and more like a beautifully worn leather jacket.
Leather jacket?
Yeah. I mean, when you buy a brand new leather jacket, it's stiff. But over the years, it gets scuffs, the elbows wear out, maybe you have to patch a tear.
Right.
It isn't perfectly pristine anymore. But those rough edges are exactly what give it character. The patches tell a story of where it has been.
That's a great analogy.
And that seems to be the core advice for navigating Glasgow. You just have to look up because the magic is in the unusual windows, the decorative stonework, the scars on the buildings that you completely miss if you were just staring at your phone's GPS.
What's fascinating here is how that building's history, the fires and the rebuilding of the School of Art, mirrors the city's broader history.
Yeah.
The rough edges physically map its evolution. Glasgow isn't frozen in time. It is a city that has experienced profound loss to also profound resilience.
You definitely see that.
You see that same resilience in how old, abandoned industrial areas along the river have been transformed into cutting-edge design spaces.
Like the Lighthouse, which is a design center connected to Mackintosh's early work.
Right. Highly recommend that.
If you go up to the viewing area there, you see the sprawling scale of it all, the sheer density. But, grand architecture only tells half the story of any city.
It really does.
To truly feel the pulse of a place, you have to follow the people away from the polished center and get down to ground level.
Right. You have to trace the flow of human capital.
Which brings us to Buchanan Street, the lively main pedestrian hub. It is packed.
Very packed.
Major international stores, street performers, massive crowds, incredible commercial energy. But here is where I want to push back on the prevailing travel logic for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you read up on Glasgow, experts paint this picture of Buchanan Street as this incredibly vibrant, beating heart of the city. And then they immediately tell you to run away from it. They say, don't simply walk down the main shopping street and go explore the side streets.
They do say that.
So if the main street is so great, why are we running off to the West End?
It is a great question, and it really comes down to understanding urban flow. Think of a city's street layout like a biological system.
Okay.
Main thoroughfares, like Buchanan Street, are the arteries. They are built purely for moving high volumes of people and capital as efficiently as possible.
Right, pump the money through.
Exactly. But the side streets, and specifically the West End neighborhood you mentioned, those are the capillaries.
The capillaries, meaning the flow slows down.
Exactly. The flow slows down. And that is where the actual exchange of nutrients, or in this case, culture and ideas, happens.
That makes a lot of sense.
Main streets are for global commerce. Side streets are for cultural incubation.
And in Glasgow, that incubation is largely driven by the university demographics, right?
Precisely. The West End is home to the University of Glasgow, which features this dramatic, Gothic-style main building that just dominates the skyline.
It's stunning.
It is. And when you have a massive localized student population, you inherently generate microeconomies that cater to them.
Meaning affordable, cool stuff.
Exactly. That means independent cafes, radical bookstores, vintage boutiques, and a much more relaxed bohemian rhythm compared to the intense corporate energy of the center.
So if you trace this energy, it leads you straight to Byres Road, which is the bustling heart of this West End area.
Right.
And because it caters to students and locals, it is where you find the authentic daily routine of the city. From a practical standpoint, it is also where you stop paying inflated tourist prices and start paying local prices.
You are moving from where a city sells itself to where a city actually lives.
I love that. And that egalitarian, student-driven energy of the West End seems to flow directly into how Glasgow treats its public spaces.
It absolutely does.
They make culture incredibly accessible, particularly when you look at Kelvingrove Park. It sits right along the River Kelvin.
It's a gorgeous area.
You have locals picnicking, people walking their dogs. You can even spot urban wildlife along the quiet riverside paths. But the crown jewel of this space is the Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum.
Yes.
It houses fine art, natural history, and cultural exhibits all under one massive roof. And the defining feature, general admission is traditionally free.
Which fundamentally changes the dynamic of the space.
It really does. The detail that stands out isn't just that it's free, but how that free admission entirely alters the psychology of the people inside.
Right. It shifts your whole mindset.
It is as if Glasgow treats world-class culture like a public utility, like streetlights or a park bench. It is just infrastructure meant to be used by the public rather than a luxury reserved only for those who can afford an expensive ticket.
What's fascinating here is the democratization of knowledge and space. Think about the psychological barrier of monetized access.
Yeah, the pressure.
When you charge $30 or €30 for a museum ticket, it creates an immediate transactional pressure.
Oh, museum fatigue.
Yeah.
If you have ever dragged yourself through the last wing of the Louvre just because you paid for it and felt you had to see every single painting, you know exactly what this transaction feels like.
It is exhausting.
It is.
We all do it. You feel obligated to stay for hours to get your money's worth.
Yeah.
But when admission is a public right, you can walk in for 20 minutes on your lunch break.
Just wander in.
Yeah. Look at 3 paintings that catch your eye and walk back out. You absorb the culture casually, organically. You interact with the museum the exact same way you interact with a public park outside its doors.
That is so refreshing. And, well, after you feed the mind at the museum, you have to transition to physical nourishment.
Of course.
And this brings us to the social fabric of Glasgow, how these people actually gather, connect, and sustain themselves.
And in a post-industrial city, food is never just sustenance. It is a demographic ledger.
Right. You start your day with a massive traditional Scottish breakfast. Eggs, sausage, bacon, beans, the works.
The full plate.
Historically, that wasn't a quaint tourist novelty. That was heavy fuel designed for men going to work in the freezing shipyards for 12 hours.
Exactly.
It is also a brilliant practical tip because it is so calorically dense, you can entirely skip lunch.
Save some money there, too.
Definitely. And then, for dinner, the quintessential experience is finding a busy local takeaway for fish and chips. Not a fancy sit-down gastropub with a curated tourist menu.
No.
A loud, busy spot, getting it hot, wrapped up in paper, and eating it messy.
Notice the trajectory here. You are moving away from the polished dining experience and toward working-class staples.
Right, grounding yourself in the city.
But it is equally important to recognize how diverse this food scene is.
Yeah.
You have incredible South Asian, Middle Eastern, Caribbean, and African cuisines seamlessly integrated into the city.
Because Glasgow's food tells the story of migration.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Port cities require massive labor forces. The food scene is a living historical record of the diverse populations who arrive to build the city, work its factories, and eventually shape its modern identity.
That's amazing.
They brought their flavors and adapted them to a cold, Scottish climate.
That working class history you see in the food scene, it's even more intense when you look at how the city drinks.
Oh, the pubs?
Yeah, pub culture here isn't about wild nightlife. Pubs historically served as the community living rooms for families crammed into small tenement housing.
They were essential social spaces.
It is where you go for lunch. It is where quiet conversations happen on a rainy afternoon.
Pubs, small music venues, football clubs. These are the foundational institutions of Glasgow's social fabric.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I want to zero in on the football aspect.
Ah, yes.
The city is dominated by 2 massive clubs, Celtic and Rangers. And anyone who knows Glasgow knows there is a fierce warning attached to this.
Very serious warning.
If you find yourself talking football with the Glaswegian, you need to choose your words carefully, because you may have just opened a conversation that lasts longer than your entire dinner.
Easily.
What is the actual mechanism driving this intensity? I mean, is this just about sports?
It is significantly deeper than sport. It is a proxy for complex historical divisions. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, Glasgow saw massive waves of immigration, particularly from Ireland, due to the famine.
Okay.
This brought a huge influx of Irish Catholics into a historically Protestant, Scottish, and Ulster Scots environment.
So it immediately created a demographic fracture.
A profound one. It physically shaped the city. It dictated which neighborhoods you lived in, which shipyards you were allowed to work in due to sectarian hiring practices.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. And it even dictated your political leanings. Because these working-class communities were so marginalized and segregated, the football pitch became the proxy battleground.
That makes so much sense.
Celtic, historically aligned with the Catholic, Irish immigrant community, and Rangers with the Protestant Unionist community.
So when you are sitting in a pub talking about a ball going into a net, you aren't talking about a game.
Not at all.
You are talking about generations of socioeconomic struggle, family history, and civic identity.
Exactly. It is the exact same mechanism driving their live music scene, too.
Oh, the venues.
Yeah, the city is famous for its tiny, sweaty, independent venues. Music here isn't just polished pop imported for big arena tours. It is generated locally in the basements and back rooms of pubs.
Right.
It is a primary way this community expresses its current struggles and joys. So, stepping into a small venue to hear an artist you have never heard of is essentially plugging directly into the current emotional barometer of the city.
Understanding where this true heartbeat of the city lies is great in theory, but how do you practically navigate a complex, gritty city like this without falling into a tourist trap or, blowing your budget?
There is a practical magic to urban navigation. You really have to adapt to the local rhythm.
For starters, you seek out affordable accommodations right in the West End to keep yourself anchored in that local neighborhood vibe.
That's a great tip.
And you have to be hyper aware of the calendar. If there is a major music festival or one of those intense Celtic Rangers football derbies, hotel prices are going to skyrocket.
And the city's energy completely shifts.
It really does. And of course, you practice basic urban safety after dark, just using common sense.
Standard protocol for traversing any major post-industrial urban center, really.
But then there is the transition out of the city. If you decide to rent a car and head into the Scottish countryside, you are going to face a very different kind of traffic jam.
No, I know what you're going to say.
It's caused entirely by sheep, just massive flocks of sheep standing in the road. And as any local will tell you, very dryly, the sheep always have the right of way.
They absolutely do. It is a jarring, wonderful transition from dense urban gridlock to pastoral standstill.
It's so funny. But the culmination of all this urban exploration is what locals consider the ultimate secret to unlocking Glasgow.
The big secret.
And the secret is this. Skip the center. Go wander Byres Road, walk to Kelvingrove, follow the river. Do not have a strict schedule. Let your curiosity lead. Just wander.
It sounds incredibly simple, but it is actually a profound challenge to modern travel habits.
Right, and I want to push back on this idea of wandering for a second, because isn't wandering a bit of a luxury?
How do you mean?
Well, if I'm an average traveler, I just spent $1,500 on flights, I only have 48 hours on the ground, and I want to see everything.
Right, the pressure is on.
Telling me to abandon my itinerary and just aimlessly wander the capillaries of a city sounds incredibly stressful. How do you actually justify throwing away the schedule?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is about overcoming a massive psychological hurdle. When you hold tightly to a highly optimized schedule, you are engaging in passive consumption.
Passive consumption, like checking boxes on a list.
Exactly. I saw the castle. Check. I took a photo of the monument. Check. I proved I was here.
Yeah, we've all done that.
You are consuming the city's greatest hits, but you aren't interacting with the city itself. When you adopt the philosophy of wandering, you transition from passive consumption to active participation.
Active participation.
Right. You become part of the daily rhythm of the place, even if just for an afternoon. By removing the schedule, you leave room for serendipity.
Oh, I love that word, serendipity.
The cafe owner who gives you a brilliant, unscripted recommendation. The dog you pet in the park. The stranger at the bus stop who tells you a joke.
The real moments.
You cannot schedule those interactions, but those are the exact micro moments that actually create a permanent emotional connection to a place.
That is the whole point of Glasgow, isn't it? It isn't a city that demands your attention with grand, imposing castles on a hill.
No, it earns your attention.
It earns it through those unscripted conversations with the cafe owners, the musicians sweating it out in a tiny venue, and the messy hot fish and chips wrapped in paper on a cold night.
It brings us back to what is arguably the most poignant observation about this cultural divide. To summarize the dynamic perfectly, Edinburgh tells you its history. Glasgow invites you into its story.
Wow. That is such a powerful distinction. A history is something you read, a story is something you participate in.
It raises a really important question for you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
If every major city in the world has a script that it desperately wants tourists to read, the polished monuments, the main shopping arteries, the curated guided tours, what happens when you deliberately throw away that script?
What happens when you go off book?
Exactly. What happens when you stop looking for the main characters of a city's history and just start talking to the extras, the people living their complex daily lives right now?
That completely flips how you look at a map. You stop looking for the bolded landmarks and you start looking for the blank spaces in between.
The side streets.
And the best part is, you don't even have to fly to Scotland to do that.
Yeah.
I want to invite you to apply this Glasgow approach to your own life this weekend.
Highly recommend it.
Ditch the optimized itinerary. Wander down a side street in your very own hometown that you usually just drive right past. Walk into a local cafe you've never tried.
And just look up.
Just look up, because if a city is truly living and breathing, it is never just a museum. It is always writing its next chapter. And if you are willing to slow down and wander off the main artery, you just might get to be part of the story.